Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Karen Ware-Jackson. I am the webinar coordinator for PRC, Practical Resources for Churches. We are an ecumenical resource center that seeks to resources churches throughout the nation, but we realize that this is a webinar that might be particularly important for parents, and so we welcome all the parents who are with us today. Janet, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and forward to the next slide.
Okay.
PRC is funded by donations from subscribers. Many of those subscribers are organizations of the national church or regional organizations. You can see those listed there. We also have individual subscribers, and we also receive donations from folks just like you. And I'll put a link that if this webinar was helpful for you, I'll put a link for a way that you can donate at the end of the webinar. I want to let you know that our presenter today is Janet Seary. Janet received her master's in social work degree from Fordham University and her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from Valparaiso University. She has worked as a licensed clinical social worker for years, and prior to that, she was a preschool teacher. She also has worked as a school-based social worker for years, and she has counseled children, adolescents, families, and adults, and facilitated group therapy sessions. She truly is an expert on children and stress, and we are so grateful that she is sharing her expertise with us today. Janet, welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen. I do appreciate this opportunity to spend this hour with you, and am grateful that I can help ease some of the anxiety that I know many people are feeling, including me. So I hope that you're relaxed, comfortable, take a deep breath, and we'll get started. This is what summer could look like, or did look like earlier in the summer for my family. And, you know, now we're at that point in August where we always wonder, how are we going to transition from summer to back to school? But this year, there seems to be even more challenges in sorting all of that out, as we will talk about as we go along. As you can see, this is the traditional way that young children used to return in September to school. I don't know. None of us really know exactly what it's going to look like this year. So I've asked Karen to put up a couple of poll questions for me so that I can get a sense of what is going on in your district, in your state. I'm presenting from New York, and I know each state has probably different regulations. So number one, are you comfortable having your children return to in-school instruction this year? Please press yes or no, or I don't know. Should I go to the next one?
Yeah, we're getting a nice group voting. We've got about half of our folks who have voted now. We'll just give it another couple of seconds till we can get a little bit more. Janet and I can see the results, and I can tell you, at least, do you have anxiety about your children returning to in-school instruction? So far, that is a very high yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got about 80% of our folks have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling, and now you should all be able to see the results. So yeah, 94% of the folks in this webinar are anxious about their kids returning back to school. And also 60% are not comfortable with in-person, face-to-face instruction this year.
Okay, and I think that's a significant number. I know when I was preparing for this webinar, I kind of surveyed the people that I had been meeting with and those people that I talk to on a regular basis. And there were varying degrees of people's comfort levels in returning to in-school instruction. And, you know, the consensus seemed to be that most people wanted their instructions to continue, but a little nervous about going into school the traditional way. So the question becomes, what now? What do we do? When and how should I prepare myself and my children for the new school year? First question, when? I would say right now. So I'm going to go through the slides. You're starting already doing that. I'm going to go through the slides, some more quickly than others, because I have a timekeeper that's going to keep me on track. Thank you, Karen, in advance. Okay, the first thing I might suggest is educate yourself about your district's reopening plan. In New York State, each one of them has one. That's a requirement. And also check with local newspapers, school district newsletters, etc. Check out your local health department for up-to-date protocols for safety procedures during COVID-19. Check your state education websites. Ask questions to the pertinent agencies if you do need answers, and it's okay to ask questions. Now, the hard part is to try to relax about this and stay calm. I know personally, this morning I was doing numerous deep breathing exercises that I've learned to keep myself from anxiety. And they're simple. There's something you can do when you're amongst people, you know, outside of your home, and the children can learn that for school. So that's my first main suggestion. What will be the same? We don't really know. What will be different? That we have a better idea of. So these are my thoughts. What will be the same? Learning new things with help from familiar teachers. Spending time with friends and classmates virtually or in person. Being able to ask questions if you need help. Teachers and children may be anxious about school starting again. That's generally the case in September anyway, in my experience, but I believe that everything across the board is much more intense this year. I know in my work with the Lutheran Counseling Center, I connect with lots of families, and families just are wondering, first, if they're alone, they're not alone, and what to do. So that was the purpose of this presentation today. What may be different? You can see the main differences I thought of are social distancing, which is a whole new concept, wearing face masks in school, perhaps having temperatures taken in school, smaller classes, fewer visitors in school, may not eat in the lunchroom. That's a big if. Parents will not provide instruction every day. And for the younger children among us, that might be a really big challenge. I have 2 grandchildren, and to varying degrees, there's anxiety about going back to school because there's so many unknowns about that. This is what I recollect that school would look like, or school buses. That's another question. In nursery school, lots of painting. That's a great thing that nursery school kids like to do. And school sports, a big part of life in school. We don't know what that's going to look like either. So what are the stressors that parents are experiencing now? And this is a consensus where these ideas are from. Will my child be safe at school? Wow, 90% of you are wondering that. I don't blame you. I wonder too. How do I balance homeschooling with my work responsibilities? That's tricky, and some of us have been trying to figure that out since March or thereabouts, and it can be very challenging, very, very difficult to do. I do not feel capable enough to teach my children effectively. That's been a common theme that I've been hearing from many people. We're not all trained teachers, and we're not always up to date with the way children learn today. So that can affect how we feel about our ability to teach. If I choose to keep them home, what will be the long-term effects for their individual educational processes? Well, again, there's a lot unknown. Lots of research has been going on all through the pandemic that I've been following, and I think that's one of the challenging parts of this. We don't really have definitive answers at this point in time on the long-term effects of the pandemic or the educational process. If the children return to school, how will they navigate the school building and transportation in a safe manner? Wow, big one. How do we do that? I have seen in local school districts reopening plans that outline that very specifically. So I would check that out if you can, and to ease some of your stress. How will the school experience the effect, or how will the school experience, how will the school exposure affect at-risk family members at home? I don't know. I just don't know, other than what we've been doing to this point. Distancing, quarantines, etc. What will I do if my child has so much anxiety that they refuse to go to school? Again, this is not uncommon in September during traditional Septembers. I suspect that that level will increase this September, and it will increase not only because the children are anxious, but because their parents are also very concerned, as we saw on our poll. What happens when they socialize with peers? We don't know that either. We don't know how another family is what they're doing to prevent any infections or exposure. So what will that look like when they socialize? Will it be small groups? Will it be outdoors on the playground? Will it be work groups in the classroom? Don't know. Now, what happens if there's an outbreak of COVID-19 at my child's school? I might panic. That might be my first impulse, but it's my hope that the personnel at your school have a plan for that, and you might want to find out what that is. Now, I thought about and listened to the children and their parents. What are the stressors my child may experience when even thinking about school? And these were some thoughts that we had. How will I feel being away from my family after months of being at home? For some kids, that's been a great comfort, just having mom and dad around more and just knowing that they're there for them, or their caregivers. I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave out caregivers. What will be different at school now? We don't know. There's going to be new procedures, new routines that we're all going to have to get used to. Will I be safe at school? Wow, that is a big one, because we're talking probably every day about our own safety and those of the people we love. Will I have to wear different clothes now? Maybe. I don't know. Protective gear? Maybe. Why do I have to keep a mask on my face? Wow. For young children, that can be challenging. I know for adults, it can be challenging too. Will I be able to see my friends again? Maybe yes, maybe no. Will my school close again? And then what will I do? What do I do if somebody is bullying me or giving me a hard time on the bus? What if I don't like my new teacher? What if I don't know anybody in my class? Will my teacher help me if I need help? These are common questions that children have under typical circumstances. But I believe, again, that they might be intensified simply because of the change in their educational process. Now, I love this picture because this is one of my favorite preschool memories of having paint on many parts of my body. And children, I know many parents probably are not too eager to get paint all over, but outdoors, it's really fun. I've done it. So you can ease your child's anxiety by preparing them for the transition they will experience a week or two before school. This year, I'm saying it's not too early to get started now, because if nothing else, explaining things and see what they're wondering about. Try to arrange play dates with 1 or 2 familiar peers before school starts. May be possible, may not, but it's certainly something you can try with 1 or 2 of your child's friends. Acknowledge that starting school can be hard and validate those concerns for your children. Reassure children that often the first time we try something new is the hardest, but it often gets easier when we get used to new things. I think for me and my family, that's been true for most things, and school is no different. We want to affirm the child's efforts when they overcome their worries, so that they're receiving positive reinforcement, so that they can feel motivated to keep doing what they're doing, even when it's hard. Stay calm and offer reassurance when children get anxious. Try to model effective ways to deal with stress. Focus on the positives and what has gotten better since the pandemic. You may be wondering about that, but I'll bet if you give it some thought, one of the things that comes to my mind right away is increase in family time and how we're having more opportunities to spend time with our kids inside and outside, which can be intense, but certainly is, in most cases, has helped. Empower children to know that they can take positive actions to lessen stress and anxiety. And I will go into that more later in the program. Pay attention to your own stress levels related to the fears of the known and fears of the unknown. Very common situation during traditional times, and there's nothing about these times that's traditional. Well, I take that back. There are very few things that are predictable. Pay attention to your own stress levels. Okay, I'm sorry, read that. Explain the nature of social distancing in an age-appropriate way. Children often hear terms and don't understand what it means. And so just again, age-appropriate explanation is usually the best way to go.
Can you give us an example of that, Janice?
Sure. Okay, so if I was talking to a preschooler, I would say the word so that they get to know that it is a word that's in use, and ask them, so do you have any idea what that means? And see what they have to say. Sometimes the answer could be probably close to what it is, and sometimes it could be way off, and that's what you want to know. If it's way off, you can bring them back to center. And the same is true for older students, but it's going to be a little different, the way it's going to look for them. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to consider asking them what they think it is first, and that way you can use the terms that they used, to mirror back to them to either explain that, oh, good job, or, well, let me help you with a little bit with what you said there. that's helpful.
Right, because I think mirroring what they say is a very important step in the communication process in general. And it helps them feel more secure, which is one of the challenges that we're all going through right now. Try to maintain a daily routine to the best of your ability so that the children can have a sense of control and predictability to help them feel a little more secure than they might otherwise. FYI, flexible structure is the name of the game right now. We're all trying to keep up routines, but I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted by 4 or 5 o'clock trying to keep a routine and some Zoom fatigue going on too. So we just be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself in trying to establish these things. Perhaps you can identify ways to reach out to others in need with projects that can be initiated at home with the family. Writing cards, giving goodie bags to your neighbors, perhaps. Excuse me. I don't know, fundraisers my grandkids were involved with for Children's Hospital because of their desire to do something for others. Please, please, please monitor the television and social media and avoid the temptation to keep that television set or the computer on all day long with that information that is ongoing 24/7. I know I have stepped back because of, let's just say, media overload, and I can't process, and I am not a child. So I just wonder how children feel about all of that. Discuss rumors, or if they bring a topic up, discuss if it is a rumor, number one, and if they bring up anything that you believe is inaccurate, that may frighten them, because young children especially are not always verbal about their inner thoughts because they can't always identify what they are. And so it's helpful if again, open-ended questions are the way to go. Wow, I've been noticing that you seem to be more quiet than usual. How can I help you? What's going on? Fresh, questions like that. Let your children's questions guide you to provide age-appropriate answers. Be aware that children do not always talk about their concerns because they are confused or do not want to worry those they love. Younger children may perceive what they overhear from adults as scary. Be a better listener and pay attention to what is being said around children. Children often imagine things that can be overwhelming and create fear they may or may not express. Stay in touch with the latest developments at your child's school regarding protocol and handling any new situations that might create concern for you and your child or your child. Whoops, that's not the next slide. That's the end. Let me go back, sorry. I don't know how we got there. There's actually some parts missing. So I apologize, everyone. Okay, we saw that one. What would be the same? What would be different? I'm sorry, help me, Karen. I'm gonna just go out, escape for a minute. I can't hear you, Karen.
Sorry, it looks like we might have a little technical difficulties with your presentation. So while we take a minute to see if we can change that, I just want to ask quickly, did you send me a copy of your presentation?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm looking at what you can see. What should I do?
So I think what we should do is let's take a few questions and then we'll start talking about the strategies that you know about. It's okay. We're not going to worry about having the slides because you know the strategies. And so we'll just start talking about some strategies to help kids deal with stress.
Okay. Great.
So you can, let's just end that share. We don't need to worry about that anymore. And
stop share.
Yeah, stop share. One of our first questions is from Karen Smith, and she asked, do you think there will be some sort of safe space where children can take off their masks for 5 or so minutes and take a break? I can tell you.
I'm sorry.
I just want to say briefly, I'm the parent of 2 kids, a second grader entering 2nd and entering 4th grade. And we don't know a whole lot, but we have been told recently that the kids will have periodic breaks where they will be allowed to go outside and they will be spaced out and they will be allowed to take off their mask outside. That's what we've been told.
I've been hearing that with younger children especially, most schools are planning to have mask breaks. What that would look like, I'm not really sure. And I think that's, again, going to be up to the discretion of individual teachers and administrators.
Jillian wonders, she says here she's in LA County in California.
Okay.
And she said all schools are doing social distance or distance learning. So how do I, as a youth pastor, help the kids and parents cope with this situation that turned out to be longer than they originally anticipated?
All right, I think we can do a lot by affirming that they're not alone, that they have other people are coping with the same things, including teachers, because people are worried in general in our society. Many people, and some people don't seem to be as anxious, but again, this concern about the unknown could be a really big anxiety-provoking situation. So as a faith community, we can let our children affirm what they're thinking. We can let them know that we're there for them. They already have a relationship generally with youth ministry. And perhaps have a Zoom meeting or some other way to meet with parents so that parents can be comforted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, Jillian notes when she said distance, she meant everything on computer, not in person, just I think how you took the question. So yeah, I think that's true. There's this real sense of the unknown because we didn't necessarily know it was going to last this long. I can tell you my son is 7 and we just realized a couple of days ago that he did not know that it was summertime. School ended and we started, we did a few things. Our local pool is open. Felt like we've been able to do that safely. And so we've done that a lot, but it didn't really change that much for him. And he didn't understand it was summer. And so he started crying because he said, "What? I missed summer." He didn't know what happened because it just felt the same.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think many of us are feeling that way. I have not really made too many trips out in public, other than a few here and there following the protocol. But it's very important for children to have a routine. And June or May, if whatever is in your locale, is the end of school. A lot of the traditions that we generally have did not occur. I commend the teachers and educators out there and church people. Oh my goodness. You guys came up with some really innovative ways to stay connected to the children. Virtual VBS is occurring in our church this year, and the feedback has been wonderful. wonderful way to stay connected. But I can tell you that I'm finding for younger children, it's hard to keep their attention on Zoom. And for older children, they are ambivalent at best about it because they don't want necessarily to sit and look at my face on screen. I've been doing counseling sessions via Zoom with mixed results.
Yeah. We do have a question. Nancy asks, similar to what you were just talking. She said, we're concerned about how we might best offer online gatherings for our children's and youth ministry when they're online so much of the day already for school. And she said, what are some ways we can offer online ministry activities without overloading children with online activities? I want to note, just from a PRC standpoint, that at the end of the very first week of September, we're going to offer a webinar called Engaging Zoomed Out Youth, which I think probably will connect with children's ministries as well. So we'll have a whole webinar on that specifically. I don't know what suggestions you might have for ways that they can engage online. And then I want to talk about those coping strategies.
Yes, and I rushed through them thinking that it was beyond, where I was, lost place. But I'm wondering how many of those strategies are in place in your family or your youth group now already. And if so, you can build upon that. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of simple ways that we can use in the family or outside of our families. Deep breathing, and it's something we can teach children readily. And when I talk to children, I assure them that not everybody is going to know that you're doing that. And if you're feeling self-conscious, you can go to the restroom and take a deeper breath, but often taking breaths. And I would say being physical. Also, maybe breaking up your time with your programs with physical movement of some sort. Stretches, what you might do in a seminar that you attend, children like to do. But it's easy to get them to get them off topic. So I'm just going to give you a warning with that. That's why I like to stick to breathing, because that we generally do in silence. But it's also useful to break up the program into more manageable pieces because of the Zoom fatigue. And that's, we're using that as a verb now. And I'm experiencing it myself. And the people I speak to, the same thing. I'm taking a nap at 4 or 5 o'clock and not sleeping at night because I'm tired. So again, I think building in rest periods or time out or playing, and I spy games, whatever I'm sure you have a lot of creative ideas. I know in youth ministry, youth ministers have a lot of tricks up their sleeves, and generally I would rely on those. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and you guys can keep throwing your questions up. I wanted to note that Jennifer was asking more about some of these coping strategies, and she offered one. She calls it STAR: Stop, Think, Act, Reflect. She said that's a good strategy for parents and kids. One of the things I noted that you talked about earlier in the webinar, you were talking about the things that will be the same.
Okay.
In school. And I thought to myself, I had never even sat down to list the things that I know will be the same. You will have a teacher.
Right.
You will be able to ask questions. There will be other students in your class. Whether they'll be Zoomed or, how much interaction with them, you don't know, but there will be other students who are interacting with your same teacher, on the same platforms. And other families, other parents that are having the same experience that you're having, whatever that is. And it helped me to start thinking through some of the things that will be the same.
And I think that can be a huge benefit because that's how many of us have been coping with the changes in our life. And these are like none others that we've seen before. When my moods are shifting into a more negative place, I have to work intentionally at remembering what I'm grateful for. And you don't want to necessarily say that to children, but as a parent, just saying, hey, you know what I've been thinking, and use yourself as an example. And then if you're blessed, you will have the children maybe start volunteering some things. And as they start to process that information, I think that will assist them greatly to lessen their own anxiety, because they probably will be on a school bus. They may paint, they may, they will have lunch. What it's going to look like, who knows? But I think that's an important tool to start the conversation.
Mm. Kathy asks, can you suggest some routines that parents can make with their children, either during online learning or after school if children are in school, to give parents a chance to ask those open-ended questions to their children to access how they're doing emotionally?
Okay, I would suggest meal times have been a tried and true method of having family discussions. During the school day, if you take a few minutes, which I would highly recommend, to do something calm and relaxing, or review, hey, what's different today? And oh, I'm wondering, I know I'm feeling a little anxious that we didn't have enough time to read, and I love to read. So I would suggest bringing up your own thoughts and feelings first, and that often does open a door. But you may have children who, give you that pat answer. Nothing, I don't know. And let me tell you that sometimes they really don't know, because we have to be taught to identify our feelings and to become more aware of our thought patterns and how they affect our day-to-day life. It's true for adults and it's true for children. And we go to all sorts of measures to avoid thinking sometimes. And then we do not, we get a little confused in our thinking or overwhelmed. That's the word I'm hearing a lot. I'm feeling overwhelmed. What do I do now? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, let the children know it. I know a lot of times people, parents, etc., do not, they feel like they might upset the children if they talk about their own feelings. But it's been my experience that it opens doors, as I said, as opposed to, it's in how you say it. It's not, you don't want to lecture them. You don't want to tell them what to think or feel, but let them know that feelings are not right or wrong. Feelings occur every day, all day. Sometimes we talk about them and sometimes we keep them inside. If we keep them inside for too long, it can do damage to us mentally and physically. And again, depending on what's age appropriate with the children, I would suggest that, it doesn't have to be done in that moment, because I think one of the mistakes I made as a parent was in my desire to explain things to children was to my poor children, I'm watching their faces, I explained something for 30 minutes. Not a good way to go, because they're tuning out at a particular point. So do some when you can during the day, whatever works, and save it, or do it later that evening before bed, or, in the morning.
Mm-hmm. I want to note, I'm going to take just a second to talk, talking about routines. In my family, we use we try to use a routine that you might have heard of from the Lutheran world. It's called the Faith Five. It's from Rich Melheim. But it starts out where you start out sharing about your day. Kristen in the chat said that they spend time each day doing their highs and lows, and that's what we do as well. We call it thumbs up, thumbs down, and we do this before bed actually. And then we read a story. We try to read a Bible story, but you can read a story from a book that might be a part of their learning from, and then we talk about the story, and then we pray and bless one another. And the point of that is that it's all mutual. That I don't just ask the kids what their thumbs up was for the day. I tell them my own. I get a lot of everything, I get a lot of non-answers from my second and fourth grader, but we do try. Martha notes that a snack after school has been a real lifesaver for her kids, and then doing a snack and a walk. Karen Smith has noted a few things. She's talked about maybe kids could do a gratitude journal or a feelings journal, or little ones could draw their feelings. All of those can be a great parts of online learning, or even homeschooling if you might be doing kind of a homeschool type situation.
I was going to say, it's a therapeutic technique that we often use with children. One of the first things I generally do with children is ask them to draw a picture of their family, or draw a picture of something fun that they did, or draw a picture of you playing with your family. And it really puts them at ease. And often I do it with them. And I think that helps them not feel like they're being, on the hot seat, if you will. And it certainly opens up opportunity for dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Eric says that they share peaks, pits, praises, and prayers. And if y'all are wondering, if you guys go to the Q&A section, you should be able to see the answered questions there, so you can see some of the stuff that I'm putting over there. Let's see. Jennifer talks about addressing children's concerns, like I won't get chocolate milk, or I won't get my favorite cafeteria meal if we don't go to school. Right. And that you could brainstorm ways that you could make home similar, or special lunches once a week, to help them come up with some of those ideas to help them make home a little bit more like school in that way.
Yeah, good ideas. These are great. Thank you for sharing.
Let's see. Lynn talked about scavenger hunts linked to prayer or on a theme are a great idea for a Zoom. I can see kids running around the house, scavenger hunting, grabbing items and bringing them onto the Zoom.
Great youth activity also, in your youth ministries.
Yeah. Zebulon says, Iowa has been dealing with a lot of stress around school plans, which have become a very heated political issue.
Yes.
She says, I worry about how to help children process these conflicts and debates.
Okay, I think the best thing we can do, and again, being attentive listeners, is to see if what they're hearing is impacting them, and to the level of that impact. This is why I suggest keeping the media to a minimum. But you're right. I mean, every day, if you turn on television, no matter what you're watching, you're probably going to hear something about a political viewpoint. And I find that that's very difficult. Children, again, they're really thinking about their own life and how all these things are going to impact them. So reassuring them and letting them know that you're impacted also, I think, is one of the most effective ways to do that.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Joshua says, how do you recommend alleviating the lack of social interaction with peers their own age when they will be doing school virtually or online, at least for most kids at the start of the school year?
Okay, that's a tough question, because that's when I'm finding that when parents tell me their kids are acting out, or they're behaving differently than they did before. Often, I think that's the stress, that they don't know necessarily how to have, they don't have the traditional outlets that they once did. They don't have the routine that they once did. So I think the best that you can do is just try to be creative. And I assure you, there are many, many websites online. That's one of the things that I'm happy for, because a lot of the webinars, etc., are free now because they want to access as many people as possible. And so if you need help, on the references that I gave to Karen, I listed a lot of those sources, and I noted the ones that I think have extensive amount of help. So if you're in doubt, try to Google.
And I just put those, where there's actually 4 documents that she sent to us, some of which Janet created, some of which she found from other places. I put those all in the chat, so you all will be able to access. You can access those links now. You can also access those links anytime you access the recording of the webinar, and you can find those on our PRC LI website. I think Angie has a really interesting note here. She says, we've chosen virtual this year for our 9th grader, and she is mad. We explained that the virus has so many unknowns for us, and we do have the opportunity to change our decision, but how do we stay strong when this is a battle within the home? She doesn't realize how different school will be, on top of the fear that she will feel if her class is quarantined.
And 9th grade is traditionally a very challenging year, if that's the year that your children begin high school. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a great deal of anxiety related to, in typical times of that. So I don't think it's a whole, handling it is not different than one would for discipline that the children are fighting against. Be consistent and let them know that what's happening, you're trying your best as a parent to provide a safe education for them. And it may not be the way they want to do it, but right now there's a limit. It's not based on parents' decisions. It's based on your state guidelines. It's based upon the school itself and the people in the school. So I don't know if that will help, but it certainly will help you explain it to them.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the hard things, and Angie, you noted that in your question, that if she were going to in-person school, she probably would also feel potentially even anger and fear, right, and being upset, or worry that would come out as anger.
And that's one of the ways anxiety comes out. Some kids get angry, some kids get withdrawn. And the reality is there is no one particular way to handle that. It has to be addressed in an individual way. And I was a high school social worker, and a lot of the students I saw were 9th graders. Now, it's if you kind of been to a high school recently and look at just the physical appearance between a 9th grader and a senior, not to mention the social development or growth between those 2 age groups, it can be quite overwhelming. And again, without having their usual outlets like school sports, school music, clubs, it's going to create stress and pressure for them, and for you too, because you're trying your best to navigate all new territory.
Yeah. I want to take a second, because we've talked about a lot of techniques, and because we don't have the slides, and we have a lot of resources up there, but just to talk through again some of the techniques we've talked about for helping children deal with stress, anxiety, worry, fear, and anger. Right. So you remind me, I'm trying to, the ones that I've heard you talk about are routines.
Right.
You talked about trying to talk about what they're experiencing. So like what's going to be the same and what's different, what's the same and what's different. And along that line, we've talked about ways that you can even make their current experience, closer, like having the right school lunch at home, or their favorite school lunch was popcorn chicken. So maybe you say we can have popcorn chicken at home for lunch or something. We talked about deep breathing. And we talked about having periods of calming time, and we talked about open-ended questions. Were there other things that you wanted to name specifically that are just ways to help kids?
I'm sorry, I'm messing around with my computer. Okay, I'll stop doing that. I was trying to get the slides back on, but I am a technologically challenged person that has just increased since the pandemic.
And we can post PDFs of your slides with the presentation. So you guys will be able to go back and look at those, which I think will be really helpful. What about open-ended questions? Nancy wonders, what techniques do you suggest to help open up the conversation, especially when you say, what was hard about today? And the child says, I don't know, or nothing.
Okay, perhaps the timing is off. Sometimes, if we come home from a long day at work, we don't want to be bombarded with questions as soon as we walk in the door. So that is something to consider. So maybe do something fun or relaxing. And children learn through play. That's when we learn. As a preschool teacher, ma'am, I learned an awful lot sitting in the kitchen area playing with the kids that were pretending to be parents. But, I think we learn from observation and from being attentive listeners and trying to read between the lines sometimes, or asking our friends, other parents, set up a connection with some people that you know, and don't be afraid to share. That was a hard thing when I was a new parent, to let other parents know that I had some insecurities. We all have insecurities. And if you ask questions, that doesn't necessarily make you a failure as a parent, but sometimes that's what we can believe.
Emily had asked, what is the best way to facilitate? Her children are going into second grade, and she said they might not know other kids in their class, so it's kind of hard to start up a friendship online. Do you have any suggestions for how that can be done?
Well, it's my hope that the teachers, especially in the elementary grades, will try to do activities to encourage that by sharing. One of the things I've read is about sharing, the teachers leading the sharings, like an online show and tell or something like that, a nonverbal way, because I think with most children, they don't necessarily want to verbalize everything. And that's, adults are like that too. I don't want to talk about every little detail that went on through the course of my day. So finding alternative ways to do that might be helpful. Do it in a time where you're relaxing or running outside and, you're tired, so you sit down for a rest under a tree. Good opportunity.
Eric suggests some things that they've done with their youth group. They've done that online show and tell, like you've just said. He also suggested that they have sent art supplies for a specific project and then done it together online. And that could be a way to facilitate a friendship, is to connect with another family and say, we're gonna make birdseed feeders, or whatever it is
Right. And
together.
perhaps I think my granddaughter did that by she and her mom took a walk in the neighborhood, and they connected with children that they didn't know before. And the benefit of that could be you ride on the school bus together. So that, that can alleviate some of that anxiety before they enter the classroom. And so it is a tricky thing to know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Karen Smith offered a note about routines, and she said that her daughter has a FOB, feet on the bunk, every day after lunch, which is a holdover from summer camp. And it helps them, gives them a break from virtual learning and lets them do something quiet that they want to do.
I think that's wonderful, because as children outgrow naps, they still need some quiet time to unwind. I know I do, and I'm far from being a child. I just need some downtime, and whatever that looks like for me. And it's true for children also.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah. I think we've got, it's getting to be at about the hour, and our questions are winding down. I'll note that we did have some questions that we're just not really equipped to answer. Paul wanted to know how do I make a decision about virtual learning versus in class, especially in a family with multiple health issues and COVID folks at risk.
With some of the resources that I've listed, there are one of them is the Mayo Clinic or well-known agencies that can, the Child's Traumatic Stress Network that can answer many of those questions also. I'm just going to pull up my resources and see if I can help. Yes, what stood out in my mind was the Academies of Children and Adolescent Psychiatry or the Academy of Pediatrics. Lots of resources for children, for parents in dealing with their children. George Lucas has a wonderful George Lucas Educational Foundation. Lots of answers there. National Child Traumatic Stress Network has a broad variety of resources on theirs. And UNICEF. So one of the last slides is, and I want to reiterate this, it's very, very important to take care of your own mental health. Don't expect that you're going to be a superhero 24/7. By the way, that's another way to get kids to wear masks related to superheroes. We can't. I mean, I don't have children living at home. And there are times where it takes all my energy to just figure it all out, because nothing is the way it was before. And we don't really understand or know fully what it's going to look like in the future.
Yeah. I had a parent ask me today. She said, "Okay, helping kids cope with stress. When's the next webinar on helping parents cope with stress?"
Well, it's my hope that if you go back through the slides, there are some points that were made. And again, if you want more information, I highly suggest checking out some of the resources that I've listed, because I could have, the challenge of doing a webinar is to keep it concise and stay on topic. And I like to just go into various tangents. So I've really tried hard not to do that. But, I also have left my email on the last slide. So if there's something that you're really struggling with, or contact Parish Resource Center or Lutheran Counseling Center. That's why we're there. And there are a lot of resources, if you ask.
If you tell me, I will be I'll sending the PDFs of Janet's slides in your follow-up email. So you'll be seeing her email there. I want to just do a couple of notes just for folks that have made comments. Kathy suggested that when teaching preschoolers on Zoom, she says she used challenges such as take a photo in front of a forsythia bush, or find a flower, or take a photo riding your bike, doing a cooking challenge. We've gotten lots of some praise. People are just thanking us for this webinar, offering prayers for parents. I can tell you as a parent that I feel a little calmer after this webinar. It reminds me
so glad
that I know we're all in this together, but mostly when I am connecting with other parents now, all we do is spin our anxiety out, and we forget that there are ways that we can, that we're all dealing with this, but there are simple ways that we can be working some of the anxiety, maybe not getting rid of it completely, but working some of it out.
Yeah, and that's why I made the caution to pay attention to what you're saying, because even though the children may not be, you can't make eye contact, they are listening and they are feeling the pressure of your anxiety, because that's what kids do. You don't have to tell them. They know something is off.
Yeah. Janet, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your expertise. I will be sending out a link to recording, a link to your slides. I have posted in the chat a link to all the resources that you listed. And I want to let people know that they can contact you via email. I don't really know about working with you as professionally if they don't live in New York State, but there are counselors everywhere.
Absolutely,
right?
And I would encourage anyone. The first thing that I suggest generally is to, if it's a child, check with your pediatrician. If you are an adult, check with your family practitioner, because often they will offer referrals. And I refer to people I know in general, rather than just a list of names on a piece of paper. Or your insurance companies. That's a little iffy because you don't always know who those people are. So that's a way that you can do that.
That's really, really helpful information. Thank you so much, Janet. And as a pastor, I also always want to say you can ask your pastor as well. We do our best to get to know good people to refer to.
I was going to say, I apologize if I've left.
Okay, no, I would go to your doctor. Absolutely go to your doctor. And we, as pastors, we try to.
Well, I mean, there's similarities between the work that we do, and in youth ministry, certainly. So I would say get the support you need and seek out support for your family members or your friends. And I know that it's been very critical to my own well-being, and I suggest that for others also. And thank you so much, everybody. As you can tell, it was a little anxiety provoking thinking about it, especially if a glitch occurred. But, in my life as a believer, I give it up to a power greater than myself. And I want to thank everyone for your attention and your support. It's been amazing. And I appreciate the privilege. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Janet. We appreciate all of you who've tuned in. Know that if you are a parent, an educator, or if you are someone trying to resource parents and educators, we are praying so mightily for you. Right now, we all need some Jesus.
Amen.
And our faith tells us, just like Janet said, that God is with us in this. So peace and blessings.
Love and peace. Thank you very much. Have a wonderfully blessed day today.